15 minutes I wrote down, but I'll keep it down to 12. We would like to offer you a behind-the-scenes glimpse at the genesis of key concepts in theme park studies, which will hopefully be published later this year with Springer. In fact, I should be reading galley proofs at this very moment. There you go. So, key concepts in theme park studies, this is a 380-page book, and it constitutes, to our knowledge, the very first transdisciplinary introduction to theme parks. And it was written collaboratively over a period of 4 years by 13 scholars from different disciplines and countries, all part of a scholarly network funded by the German Research Foundation. I'm going too fast here. It has 17 chapters, and in these 17 chapters, Key Concepts combines critical perspectives and analytical methods to introduce students, researchers, and we hope also professionals to the complexity and the diversity of the unique and multivalent phenomenon that we call the theme park. Now, scholars have been discussing theme parks since at least 1968, and in that year, 13 years after the opening of Disneyland in Anaheim, American film historian Richard Schickel published a Disney version, a critical biography of Walt Disney that also includes a chapter on Disney's land. There was only one at this point. As theme parks in general, I'm not sure why this is happening. As theme parks in general, and Disney theme parks in particular multiplied over the following decades, so did the scholarly, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Sorry, so did the scholarly publications on theme parks. And the Disney version would be republished in revised editions in 1985 and 1997, and it would be joined by such milestones in the field, such as Umberto Eco's Jealous and Hyperreality, first in Italian in 1975, the Journal of Popular Culture's 1981 special issue on theme and amusement parks. You have Stephen Fjellman's Vinyl Leaves, Walt Disney World in America in 1992, Salvador Anton Clavé's The Global Theme Park Industry in 2007, and of course, Scott A. Lucas's Theme Park in 2008. And all of these works, and the many more that I don't have time to mention here, have sort of become part of the canon of scholarly literature about theme parks. The list of articles and books that keep appearing in the works cited list of scholarly publications on theme parks, no matter what particular aspect of the field they discuss. And canon formation is, of course, one of the signs of the coming of age of a scholarly field. And indeed, over the past few decades, there have been several indicators that have pointed to the emergence of theme park studies as, if not a discipline, then at least an independent scholarly field. There has been the foundation of the Journal of Themed Experience and Attraction Studies. There has been the establishment of specialized degree programs and tracks of studies, and I've mentioned a few here. I'm not going to go through all of them. And there have been such monographs as, well, The Global Theme Park Industry by Salvador and Clavé. We've also heard about David Younger's wonderful theme park and the art of theme entertainment. And all of these monographs offer more or less comprehensive introductions to the field. Now, all of these monographs, however, also somewhat remain committed to the home disciplines of their authors, from tourism and hospitality management to anthropology and cultural studies, as well as architecture and design. And indeed, it seems rather doubtful that there will ever be a single, all-encompassing theory of theme parks with a corresponding commonly accepted methodology for their study. And I do not think that such a unified, streamlined approach to theme parks even should exist. What should exist, however, is more and more intensive collaboration between the different disciplines and between the different scholars in this field. And this is the spirit in which in March 2018, a long time ago, the 13 authors of key concepts in theme park studies undertook the endeavor of writing this transdisciplinary introduction. And now here you have them. And incidentally, I'm very proud to say that among these 13 scholars, there are both some of those who contributed to the canon of scholarly literature on theme parks, notably Scott Lucas and Salvador Anton Clavé, but also some new and upcoming members of the scholarly community, including PhD candidates and postdocs. The members of the writing team come from all over Europe and North America, Germany, France, Switzerland, Spain, the UK, and the US, from both universities and universities of applied sciences. And the members of the writing team represent many of the disciplines that over the past 50 years have been engaged in the study of theme parks. So we have geography, tourism studies, history, anthropology, American studies, museum studies, and performance studies. And you may imagine the potential for scholarly discussion that such a diversity of disciplines inevitably provokes. But we were not quite happy yet. We wanted even more chaos, even more creative chaos, interdisciplinary chaos. For we were not just looking to merely gather and juxtapose concepts, points of views, and approaches from different fields. We wanted a truly transdisciplinary approach. Therefore, it was necessary for the authors to not simply contribute individual chapters, but we wanted that every single chapter, and ultimately the entire volume as a whole, to be the product of genuine collaboration, of collective thinking, structuring, and drafting. And this process was, we admit, at first a little difficult for most of us, and judging from our discussions with them, I don't think our publisher has really understood the concept until now, but we're working. Because cooperative writing means continuously negotiating concepts, models, and assumptions that may be commonly accepted within one's own discipline, but not in others. During our meetings, we quickly realized that much time and effort would be needed to find, if not a common denominator for each of the concepts, then at least conceptual bridges between vastly different scholarly traditions. Consequently, we decided that the book should cover a series of transdisciplinary key concepts. Some of these key concepts are inspired and reflect research paradigms that have established themselves since the beginning of scholarly debates about theme parks in the late 1960s. For instance, the chapter on, what's happening? So here we have the first chapter on antecedents, origins, and developments, and that one responds to the frequent call for historical theme park studies. It reconstructs the history of themed immersive environments from antiquity to the Middle Ages to the early 20th century, and it surveys the economic, aesthetic, and cultural development of theme parks since the mid-20th century. It may not surprise you that at 17,000 words, this is one of the two longest chapters of the book, and the one to which almost everyone from our writing team has actually contributed. And the other one, the other long chapter, is methods, and we'll talk about that. Now, taking their cue from the growing interest in the production of theme parks by employees and their reception by visitors and fans, we have two chapters on labor and visitors, and they discuss labor practices prevalent in theme parks across the globe and the roles of visitors, customer, pilgrim, performer, fan, and experiencing body as well in the theme park industry. We have a chapter on media, which provides an entryway into the numerous publications on the role of theme parks in transmedial networks and the contribution of individual media to theme parks' plurimedia. We have a chapter on paradox and reception, and this one offers a framework for the various studies on theme park paradox. And this is our term for how theme parks represent themselves in advertisements, on their websites, on maps, on social media, and so on and so forth. And by reception, we mean the reception of theme parks in other media. So think Jurassic Park or Crossland, for instance. We have a second set of key concepts that is dedicated to terms and concepts that have been regularly used in theme park studies, yet frequently without much awareness of how complicated their use really is across the disciplines. So for instance, we have a chapter on attractions in the theme park, and this chapter discusses how attractions come together in a park-specific attractions mix to form one coherent narrative space. We have a chapter on immersion that uses the concept of immersivity to describe theme parks' capacity to induce an immersed state of mind in visitors. So now we're moving on to the next presentation. This is worrying me. This is really, sorry, Joe. I don't know what's going on.
Is it just going by itself? Like, are you touching the...
I'm not touching it. I'm straight with it. I'll give you on the attractions one. Yeah. Yeah. Can I give you a very discreet sum? Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head. Okay. So where was I? Oh yeah, we have a chapter on attractions. We analyze how attractions come together in this park-specific attractions mix to form one coherent narrative space. We have a chapter on immersion, which focuses on immersivity. That's our concept to describe theme parks' capacity to induce an immersive kind of state in visitors. And moving on, the chapter focuses then on the roles played by narrativity and bodily affect in people's immersion. We have a chapter on authenticity, which draws on the long debate about the term, especially in tourism and museum studies, and it examines the sometimes parallel use of vastly different concepts of authenticity in theme park marketing, in theme park design, theme park performance, and theme park reception. For example, we argue that theme park designers often work with the concept of perceived authenticity, which allows for some liberty in dealing with, for example, historical or geographical realities. Theme park marketers, however, often rely on the rather traditional idea of museological authenticity, according to which, for example, a Chinese themed area in a German theme park is authentic if the materials used to construct it have been imported from China. Yeah, so that's the marketer's version of authenticity. We also have a chapter on theming, believe it or not, and this one defines theming, discusses general characteristics such as recognizability and exoticism, provides a history of design styles, as well as popular subcategories of theming, including IP theming, but also self-referential theming. However, the chapter also reflects on the limits of theming. We have a very fun section on failed themed environments, and we conclude with a subchapter on the future of theming, especially virtual or hybrid theming. And the final, thank you, group of key concepts uses fundamental characteristics of theme parks and examines these through a transdisciplinary lens. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Alright, so we have a chapter on space, which is dedicated to the spatial dimension of theme parks and investigates their being within space and structuring space. So the relationship between the theme park and everything that lies outside the theme park. We have a chapter on time, which discusses the complex temporality of theme parks. So we have several distinct temporal layers: represented time, experienced time, managed time, external time, and all of these layers interact constantly within the park. Now, spatiality and temporality are implicated in the planning and design, as well as in the operational strategies of theme parks, which are examined in the chapter on economic strategy. And perhaps even more importantly, this chapter also discusses environmental, social, and governance strategies in the theme park economy, and examines how theme park operators have striven to become and to be perceived as more sustainable over time. You may think of sustainability as a worldview as well, and this worldview is sometimes even reflected in the overall message or in the brand of a particular park. And the chapter on worldviews, our next chapter, analyzes such ideologies or worldviews as they are reflected in the park's marketing and design, from nationalism, regionalism, capitalism, religion, and environmentalism as well. We have an industry chapter, which seeks to disentangle the system of the global theme park industry by outlining the different types of theme parks, the importance of the main theme park companies and brands in the evolution of the industry, and the role of the many diverse players that participate in the delivery of the theme park experience, the value chain, so to speak. It also identifies theme park clusters and networks and offers comments on the impact of COVID-19 on the theme park industry. We have a chapter on inclusion and exclusion, which emphasizes how exclusions, inclusions based on class, race, gender, sexuality, or able-bodiedness manifest themselves at both physical and spatial, but also at the symbolic level in theme parks. And it discusses how people involved in the theme park industry, and not just managers, but also visitors and employees, have worked towards removing these exclusions over time. And finally, I already told you about this, the chapter on methods is perhaps the most fun chapter of the entire book, because we use it to talk about our own experiences in researching theme parks, and specifically to identify the various challenges that you may encounter when you do field research or other research on theme parks, from the raised eyebrows that you sometimes get from your colleagues when you tell them that you work on theme parks, to the big no that you get when you ask theme park companies for their numbers, or to the what that you get from your publisher when you tell them that you want to publish a collaboratively written book. So, no worries, however, because this chapter does not only identify problems, but it also comes up with some of the things that we have learned over time. So this is our introduction to theme parks, or as we call it in the introduction to our introduction to undergraduate students, established scholars, newcomers to the field, experts and professionals, and really everyone who is interested in the topic to join us in the transdisciplinary scholarly discussion about theme parks. And judging by the genesis of this book, over the past 4 years, all of our experiences taken together, I can promise you it will be a bumpy ride, but it will be a fun ride as well. Thank you. Yeah, sorry about the confusion.
Questions? Really? There's a microphone right behind you.
Who's the audience for your book?
That's a very good question. We aimed for the broadest audience possible. So for instance, I teach in the Department of Anglophone Studies. My students will become English teachers in German. Right? So as part of our cultural studies component of their studies, we do theme parks, or I do theme parks in my classes. So that would be something for my students, but it would also be something for Salvador's classes. Salvador in the geography department at Rovira and Virgili, who teaches theme park management. Yeah. So this is really an introduction. And this is how it's being written, as really the first text that you made, that you could use.
We have another question here.
Can you give a quick example of how to read a theme park attraction as text? Like how it would relate to other theme park attractions or other external sources?
There's so many ways in which you could do that.
Just one.
So, okay, you mean a concrete attraction?
Yeah,
or-
pick an attraction and explain how it relates.
Okay, let's take Haunted Mansion. First one that comes to mind for some reason. Okay, so you could analyze the storyline of Haunted Mansion, the storyline, the way the storyline has developed over time. There's several iterations of that storyline. The way the story has expanded into different media. I'm talking merchandise here, but also complementary publications, novels, picture books, or behind-the-scenes books, or whatever. You could do a transnational approach, compare all the different haunted mansions, think about how they fit into their local environment. Or you could also imagine how, well, how Haunted Mansion has been imitated, not just by Disney itself, but also by other theme parks. Yeah. So these would be, and finally, you could also examine how Haunted Mansion has been represented by Disney itself, and how that representation has changed over time. So that would be my humanities, literary scholar studies approach to that particular attraction.
My backup question is how many episodes of The Simpsons have you watched to understand theme parks? Because Krusty Land is a great example, right?
It is a great example, and it is especially a great example because this is a fake theme park that has made it back into a theme park. There are a lot of fake theme parks. Some of them have ended up in this, have made it into this exhibition for Gallery 88, I think it is, in Los Angeles. But this one is a fake theme park that hasn't made it back into a theme park, which is so interesting because this is a very snarky representation of a theme park. That's what makes it so astonishing when you see it.
Thank you so much, Florian. Amazing.